Convene the October 20th, 2021 regular board meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. Chris, please call the roll.
Marjorie Botelli.
Here.
Karen Larson.
Here.
Jenny Norton, absent. Liz Sullivan.
Here.
Emily Swistek, absent. Lorna Turner.
Here.
Sarah Wynn.
Here.
Thank you. Agenda item 2, opportunity for visitors to speak. Public comment is for the general public to address the board. Each person will have up to 5 minutes to provide public comment. Seeing none? No one by email? Thank you. Agenda item 3 acknowledges that Secretary Larson and Trustee Wynn reviewed the September billings in October, and President Bartelli and Trustee Turner will review the October billings in November. Agenda item number 4 is the consent agenda. Is there a trustee who wishes to pull something from the consent agenda? No. If not, may I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
And I will second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? Chris, can you please call the roll?
Karen Larson.
Aye.
Lorna Turner.
Aye.
Liz Sullivan.
Aye.
Sarah Wynn.
Aye.
Marjorie Botelli.
Aye. Thank you. Item number 5 is unfinished business. Letter A, capital improvement project. Subset 1 includes A through E, schedule, budget, Moody's rating, contractor pre-qualification process, and the 3rd open house.
All right, I can take it from there.
Sure.
All right, right off the bat. So, hello everyone. It's been only a short while since we've seen you before, but there's been a lot of work since then. Quite a few updates. And Jenny, if you want me to give you a second?
So,
Yeah. Well, especially if you, yeah.
Unfinished business.
Not a problem. So, right off the bat, we'll talk about the Moody's credit rating and that process a little bit later down the line. But good news there is that you got a AA1 rating, so that was a great job to the district. That's all in the district too. It's nothing that anyone else did. It's all you guys. Other part that we'll talk about in more detail is the pre-qualification. So we did get 15 submittals. One was late though, and they understood that we couldn't accept it because it was late. So really there were 14 on-time submittals for pre-qualifications, which is a good number. 15, 14, it's a great number. Really what we're trying to whittle it down to for, just as a reminder what we talked about 2 meetings ago, is we're trying to get that number down to 4 to 7 for bidding purposes, so that's good. Other things are just as quick updates. Number 1, we held a meeting with the Lisle Woodridge Fire Protection District, the fire chief. He came in. He went through the plans at a high level with Sheehan Nagel Hartray, Amy from Sheehan Nagel Hartray. Director Weinstein and myself just gave us some different feedback on where he wants things located in terms of if the building needs to be accessed by the fire department. So that was good to get his feedback. There were no objections to the plans at all, and he was comfortable with accessing the building, for instance, through the staff entrance by the receiving door. So things like that.
When we're in construction.
Yep, and after even.
Yeah, and he said that he was very, I think he also mentioned the, sight lines, the new sight lines that we'll have, more safety value there as well.
Yep. We've also had a number of meetings with library staff and Sheehan Nagel Hartray. So thank you to library staff for going through those. I think they have been valuable. I've sat in on all of them. And, just in terms of feedback and things that were reviewed, everything from electrical locations and data locations that I've reviewed with the department managers have gone through. The workroom layouts for each of the departments has been gone through. The finishes that the board saw. And actually we have some updates there. I'll pause on.
You wanna go now?
Yeah, let's do that now because I don't want to come back to it. But just so you're all aware, I know one of the things I'm just going to point out when I'm walking over here is the carpet for the youth services department. So this was the one that had a little bit of concern from last time we met. They brought out a second option that during the meeting it was fairly well received. I think we need to see how this lays out in a big room, but you can tell it seems like chill. resolve, I think, Jenny, your issues.
Yes.
So,
I-
Good choice.
so we think we need to look at this one more time in terms of the overall floor plan, but this is where we're gonna end up going towards. And then these are some updated end panel type colors instead of this carpet, so that still looks pretty good. This is actually an example at a small size of a pattern that would go in the children's playroom.
Oh, nice.
So it would be blown up big, and that's something that Will really wanted.
Yeah, he liked that one a lot.
He liked this one, I like the colors, but he wanted it big, so it didn't seem like we were in a room, it's really busy, he wanted it. So that's pretty cool. We also have some wall coverings now, being looked at. So this is a green one that goes here with, that would be behind the service desk essentially. As people walk in on the left, they get a little bit more interest in there.
Tackboard.
Yeah, that's right, tackboard, thank you. Above the low shelving and 2 walls in the main area.
Where you can tack art up for kids and things like that.
So that kind of sits over there. And then rubber flooring options were talked about as well. We're gonna look at and see how it all works. I think right now they're leaning towards,
No.
well, this one if it's the whole thing.
Yeah, if it's the whole layout of more of a gray.
Yep, if it's the whole layout, or if it's the play area only, it'd be more towards this. But you can see it's a little bit smaller of a fleck and it doesn't contrast too much and it goes, both of these go well.
There were other options with the rubber flooring that had multicolored flecks and larger flecks, but Will thought it was too busy. So he really gravitated towards the green and the gray. Now, when you see everything together, when you come over and take a look at it afterwards, you can see how everything kind of goes. And then there's some paint colored swatches as well.
Yeah, the blues, the purple,
For accent
greens,
walls.
and accent walls.
Nice.
So I think it went really well overall in finishes. There are still a few things that we've asked G&A Archer to go back and look at. Some things in the teen room to kind of finalize that. Just going department by department in terms of tech services, they were really happy. So I don't think you've seen that floor, but there is a kinetics floor. It's one that's really durable that they're asking for in tech services just because of all the cart traffic. So that was a good option there and get that feedback. They picked out accent wall locations and colors just to get some life in that room. It's paint, you can pick paint colors. Circulation department, again, an accent wall was picked out. They liked their new layout as it was revised. Adult services, the workroom has finally been worked through, no pun intended, but making sure that there's adequate sight lines for the manager so she can see staff in that room. We are still looking for, we also went through all the service desks that are on the public. The one thing that came out of the adult services meeting is that the architects need to look at how where we put the book club bags. So there's roughly 15 or so bags that need to be located. We think.
Just display stuff so that they're accessible and there's storage on the public floor.
Yep. So there's these little things are being worked through, but generally the takeaway was that everyone's happy. And YS, we even talked about a gaming monitor maybe being placed up for not only gaming in the main area by little ones, so they don't have to go into the teen area, but also they could be used dual purpose and be an existing monitor for some of the announcements or just like a slideshow that rolls through. So some good ideas came from that as well. Any feedback in admin? I don't want to speak for you.
I have yet to speak with my staff on an accent wall.
Yeah. Yep. So I think there's accent wall to be picked out, but again, that's paint. Then you're getting down to that detail. That means you've solved a lot of the big issues. So
Yeah, there's still some outliers, but we're not there yet.
right. Yeah, but we do have a month and a half or so to really finalize that stuff. So that's good. And then things like paint colors, if it's tweaked, it's tweaked. That's something that can change. When you go out to bid, you need to know it's paint or it's carpet or it's tile or whatever else. So we'll get that worked through. And then obviously the design team is working to take all that information and complete a construction document package for bid and permit. And they're targeting to complete that package ahead of Thanksgiving. So that we can go into the Thanksgiving break knowing that there's a package ready to go out. If there's minor tweaks that we need to review, at least on the internal staff and CCS side, we can review it, but then right after Thanksgiving, we can go out to bid. And that leads me into schedule. So why we're trying to get out the schedule, and it's something that I've got to do over the next probably month or so. We've got the schedule right now to go out to bid between the holidays. And we're tracking towards awarding a contractor at the latest at your February board meeting. That's after the bid process. And this is the same schedule that was from the concept design. If we're looking at that meeting, I'm looking to see what we're hearing in the industry right now in the market is there are some super long lead items. And I have to see if those are going to impact your project at all. So for instance, things that might not impact your project, there's like air handling units. I've heard people are waiting 9 months for it right now. It's incredible. This is after a purchase is placed, which it's not just when you award the contract to the contractor. There's usually weeks of shop drawings. Then it's purchased. Other things like steel is a real big challenge right now, metal decking and things like that. I'm not seeing any huge red flashing lights, but we'll communicate that over the next couple of months if we think, regardless, we need to get out to bid because you can't have a contractor order anything until they're on. So it's a good thing that we're tracking on time, I guess is a short story there. So with that, and where we're at today, we are still right on time. Just taking from the top, the design phase, today's the update meeting that we planned for October. At the regular November meeting is when we're going to be asking you to move forward to bid, to accept the scope of work in the 100% CDs. That's the next November meeting. In project funding, we've gotten through the rating process. It's been done, and the bond sale looks to be closing on the 26th at 10 a.m., which means that you would receive your funds in November. And permitting, once the construction documents are completed, then it goes out for permitting, so we're good there since we've gotten the special use application. And then finally, contractor procurement, we are in the midst of pre-qualification, so we're tracking right in time there as well. Jumping into budget, there's no change really in the budget since we met on the 12th. That budget was produced with the design development drawings and package. Only changes are highlighted in yellow, and that's just the amount of funds that were expensed out to consultant invoices over the past 2 weeks, essentially. Debt issuance is the next main topic. So again, kudos to the library. I think Tatiana had included a snippet from the credit ratings report in your packets that spoke to how well run the library is. The only way that you probably could have gotten any higher rating was if we lived in an area that was filled with just nothing but millionaires. And he made note of like the Hamptons is like the only area that gets a higher credit rating. So good job to you guys. Where we're at right now is PMA has posted the debt issuance on their website, or not their website, sorry, there's a platform that they have to sell the debt through. So they've publicized that, the bids are open. The bids close on the 26th at 10 a.m. So that day we'll know by the evening kind of where everything lies and what the rates are and how the paperwork has to be finalized over the next couple of weeks. Following the closure, there will be some forms that need to be filled out by members of the board. And from what I've seen right now, it's the president, it's the treasurer, and it's the secretary. We're sorting that out right now with your bond and disclosure council. They'll set up a meeting to go through all that with you. Nothing needs to be an action item because you actually approved all of that information in the packet of information that you approved last board meeting.
So we could just have the trustees come in and sign?
Yep.
Okay.
But I think we're trying to set it up, if we can, to have Jimmy Shanahan, the person that you guys all met here, so that if you have a question on what am I signing, that at least can be answered. And we can get through that in one sitting with you. And last, the funding is scheduled to be received in November. So any questions on debt issuance before I move on? All right. Contractor pre-qualification process, again, we're tracking right on time here. We've finished reviewing the qualifications against the form basically, and it's how much experience have they had, how many libraries have they completed, did they follow the instructions of the submittal window. And the short story is of the 14 that it submitted, we're recommending that you interview 10 firms. And the interview would be done by an interview panel. And just as a reminder, when we talked about this last time, it's typically 2 board members. So it can be held in a meeting that we don't have to schedule and publicize everything. So it's 2 board members. Typically, that's the president and vice president. It's up for some discussion if you need, but that is typical. It's what we'd recommend, so it's just easier to flow through. As long as the president and vice president can be at all of the interviews. That's the thing. So they need to score the interviews, and that means that they need to be in every interview. It's not fair to the firms if you're in one and not another one. Everyone's going to be in the whole thing.
And these are just interviews for those who like to present it there.
Yes.
So you know.
Yep.
We're
So
not choosing any.
right. So that's a good point. So right now we've got 14. We're bringing in what we're recommending is 10. And the reason why we'd cut out 4 is either they don't have library experience, which a couple didn't. The people they submitted are inexperienced with this type of library, and they have very limited library experience as a firm itself.
Or they didn't know phasing
They
projects.
didn't mark phasing.
Or didn't fill out the RFQ.
We saw that a couple times. So Director Weinstein and I sat down, we went through every one, put it on the sheet, and we can share that information offline. Typically don't review that in these types of meetings, but we can have it. It is all auditable. So if one of those contractors said, can I have that information? The answer would be yes, and
Tedious
Here's the
stuff,
email.
but
Mhm.
You mentioned the president and vice president sitting in on those.
Mhm.
Would we want to share their presentations with the entire board? Is that something we can do, at least a hard copy?
You can give the hard copy if they bring one. We don't require it. We actually,
Well,
CC
Excuse me,
Yep.
the reason I'm asking is if all the board members review that and they have questions, they can bring it to vice president and myself. I think that's, from my perspective, that's very important, everybody to be a part of that. But if that's not the normal process, maybe we could talk about that.
I misunderstood your question. I shouldn't have cut you off. I'm sorry for that. So I thought you meant the presentation that you wanted them to share, which they
Yes.
won't share ahead of time. I think you meant the submittal that they already gave, and yes, the answer to that question is yes. The submittals that they already gave that we have in our hands now,
Yeah.
yes, that will go out to all the board members
Oh, yes.
with all the information,
with
yes.
all the background and the
Okay.
checks of,
Yes.
did they fulfill the
Then
RFQ?
I misunderstood.
Yeah, now we're on the same wavelength. That's what we talk about.
Do you have a formalized score sheet?
Yes, and the interviews will also have a formalized score sheet. So the way we run that is we'd send out a score sheet probably a day in advance, if that, because again, some of it's perception. You don't want the public thinking that someone got a score sheet in advance or whatever else. You come in and you just make sure all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed appropriately. But if we do 10 firms, it'd be over 2 days. We'd actually set up 6 sessions per day over 2 days. So the first session would be a prep session where the interview panel would come in, look at the scoring sheet and say, yes, this is the scoring we want to use. And we'll have that already prepped so that you'll see it in advance, but that's what the first session is, to prep everyone. We'll have an agenda that will already have gone out to the contractors. They're going to come in and bring up to 3 people. No PowerPoint, we say, because we want them talking to you. This is really to identify if they can communicate in a job environment where they don't have PowerPoint or a marketing team behind them. And really, they're looking to communicate with not only the board, but also, more importantly, almost the staff. So you'd have 2 board members there, 2 staff representatives from CCS, as well as from your architect, Shane Nagel-Hartray.
Would you anticipate they would take as long as they did for the architect?
We will give them up to, typically it's either 45 minutes or 60 minutes. I like 45 minutes because then you give 15 minutes of a break to switch to the next person, maybe 50. But we tell them it's no more than a 30-minute presentation following an agenda, and then it's 15 minutes Q&A. And those Q&A, we'll have a few teed up. We'll ask, if the staff want to ask one, or does the board member want to ask one. It's not just CCS at that point. We'll ask a few.
And how many are you doing in a day?
We do 5. So the first, sorry, I cut myself off there. The first one would be the prep session, and then we'd have 5 interviews. The second day would be 5 interviews, starting right at the top.
Right.
And the 6th session would be everyone on the interview panel giving in their scores. And part of it is that you need to see it. Whoever's on the interview panel needs to see all of the interviews to be able to really rank them against each other. So you use that last slot to kind of adjust your rankings. If you remembered something from this person and not that person, you can adjust it. At the end of it, we will put it up on a screen, and we'll say, have everyone read their total score for that firm. We'll add up the scores, and then we'll talk about where the cut line is. And usually when you do that, there is a cut line that becomes apparent. Like they'll have a gap of, you guys did this with architects, you'll see the gap almost. And that's what you'll find.
And again, it's important to note that it's not like hiring an architect. It is seeing who will be able to submit bids. Who will be
Who's
submitting
pre-qualified.
bids, pre-qualified,
Yep.
submitting the bids.
Yep. You are pre-qualifying firms, not selecting firms. And so you're not getting down to 1 or 2, you're pre-qualifying 4 to 7 that are allowed to submit a bid.
And to wrap this, can you walk us through that day that we receive bids? Like what happens on that day?
So on that day, we will have a public meeting. It doesn't need to be, shouldn't be a board meeting, quite frankly. You
No?
can have 2 board members there if you want. Well, typically, we'd set it up middle of the day. If the bids are due, say 1 p.m. is a typical time.
Oh, and then you leave them allowed.
Yeah, bids are due 1 p.m. They have to be in, by then, they have to get time stamped by a staff member or someone like that when they come in. So they have to be on time. And then at 1:30, we'll publicize this in your project manual that there'll be an open meeting that anyone from the public can attend, that the bids are open, the sealed documents are opened, and then read aloud. We then go away because you can't take any action that day. You're not awarding just the lowest number at that point because we have to go and verify all the scope that they bid on is accurate. So we'll go away for about a week or a week and a half, review all of that information, make sure it's all included, and then come back to the board with a recommendation.
That would be like in January, right?
Yeah, and ideally be January if we
And because then we select who, the contractor in February.
well, you wouldn't be selecting it, but this process, you are going to take essentially the lowest bidder at that point.
Qualified.
Well, yeah, because they're only people that have submitted have already been qualified.
Right.
So you would take the lowest, as long as they've submitted a full scope package. You know, if they,
That's per state law.
yes,
You have to.
And I would assume the people that they're gonna be interviewing, the first part, the interviewing process.
pre-qualification.
Yeah, the pre-qualification. Most of those people have done libraries before.
yes, yes,
So they're gonna be pretty familiar with what's going on.
right. They're pretty familiar with what's going on. They've done it before, whether it's libraries, in addition to schools and local work, and they're all. I'd say, knowing the firms that are on here, they're all reputable firms. Even the ones that may not make the cut might be reputable firms, but just the team they submit is not the right team for your project. That's part of it too. A firm could have all the credentials in the world, but if they give you the E team, not even the A, B, C, or D, that doesn't qualify. It's the people who are doing your project that really matter, and that's why we do the interview. We want to see the people, not just the firms.
Got it.
So hopefully that all makes sense. If that all does, and there's no other questions, and it makes sense to do the president and vice president as part of the interview panel, we'll find 2 dates, typically 2 dates in a row, so that it's fresh in everyone's mind. Either the week of the 1st potentially, or early the week of the 8th. And the goal there is to try to get it done before your regular board meeting in November. And if we have to submit a packet,
So many meetings.
yeah, right.
So be prepared for a long day on one of those days, early in
Just
November.
November 1st.
The week of,
The week
or
of.
early the week of the 8th.
We'll have to confer with Emily, and if she cannot, we will go from there.
Right. Really, we're trying to get it done by the Thursday before your regular board meeting. Any questions, or is that all acceptable? All right. Going down the list, upcoming activities is the next one for me. We talked about the construction documents being finalized. Other things that we're starting to work on are phasing plans. We already are aware of the phasing. We're going to do come in and first put in the west renovation and the 2 new entrances, and that way the temporary library essentially would be the east half here, and then it'll flip and you'll do the east side of the building. What we're working through right now is any of the temporary staff locations. Is there enough power? For instance, if we're going to move out the divider in this room and then put maybe a staff department in this half and maybe a public department in that side, where do we have outlets and data to make sure that all works? That's all being fleshed out now, so that goes into your bid documents. We're also working through any remediation plans, which is found to have been very minimal. We did get good news. I don't know if I shared this the last board meeting, but all right, about the piping is not a concern. It's just some floor mastic, so that's good. We've got the debt certificate issuance and the interviews to be scheduled, and the last thing for discussion is a 3rd open house. So I don't know if you want to take that or.
Well, I discussed the 3rd open house with President Bartelli, and so our last open house was on Monday. I think
Yes.
it was.
Yeah.
And that was to engage patrons about colors and updated floor plans and things like that. And since then, there have been, I've presented to a lot of women's clubs with some updated floor plans and things like that, and I'll get into that with my report. But we're trying to think of the best way, because we're at a point right now where we've really shared a lot of information with the public. It would just be basically a review. And I think Mark and both President Bartatelli and I talked about the people who were interested early on came, and we had 35, 40 people in because they're so interested in it. And then the Monday didn't work, and I think also because we've already shared a lot that I'm not sure we'll get a huge amount of people for this third one. So I was just brainstorming with President Bartelli about what could we do to try to get the word out to the broadest range of people. And so I suggested that she and Nagel Hartrey, or I, or the CCS, or the combo of the above, ask the village that we present or do a presentation at Village Hall, because that is televised live and probably has a wider range of viewership than we might. So it was just an idea, and actually watched the last village meeting. And so like, I'm not sure if we could get it as an agenda item or if we do it as public comment. And I talked to Mark about this, and we didn't really know, but I just watched the last village meeting, and someone presented at public comment, and the village allowed them to present a PowerPoint slide, which I'm not sure that they normally do, but we could probably request that. And so it wouldn't be a back and forth, it wouldn't be an agenda item, there wouldn't be anything, we would just present, this is what we're doing, these are the renovation highlights, if anyone in the village, just really show the community all of the advantages of the renovation, something similar to what I did at the Lisle Women's Club. And then, and that's it. And so it's just an item up for discussion. Do we like this idea as a quote third open house, or would you rather see something back here? And then on the same note, I can't remember who I talked to this about, but because we do want things in the building, and having, because we have a gallery 777, having some updated boards, we just align the wall on gallery 777. And then, because it's way back there, I was thinking we could also, on the carpeting, put like footprints that say renovation info, and then guide people back there. We
That's
have
great.
signage, things like that. So we have something here, it's not in the meeting room, it's on the public floor where people can go. And those two things, and there could be more, kind of act as our third open house. So, I don't know, President Bartel, would you like to
Well, I
add to that?
totally agree, and I have seen at village meetings, especially to advertise some of the athletic leagues. They've had the baseball teams come and do a short presentation. There have been some of the clubs have come to mention their programs. I would think the library would get the same recognition. Don't know for sure, but, and I love the idea of the gallery 777 with the footprints, put it out there. You want to have comments?
Yeah, I think the gallery thing is awesome. I think it'll give patrons an idea, like if you have like samples of like the different colors and the schemes and kind of like the artist renditions that they have, the architect's renditions and drawings. I think they'll be like, oh wow, this is gonna be really cool when it's done, it's not gonna look anything like what it does now. So yeah, I think that's a great idea. And that way, if you guys don't wanna go to the village and do the thing, but if we have it here, but if we also post something online or, Instagram, Facebook, all of that, social media, I think the people that are really interested in it are gonna seek it out. The people that aren't interested, you're never gonna capture them. It's pretty much like that with anything, just depends what they're feeling and what their motivation is,
Yeah, there is a concept like breaking through the clutter, they call it. And, you know, there are people who are never gonna use the library, they're never gonna be interested, and we could go to their homes and they wouldn't be interested. And we're never gonna get them.
Right.
But I love the idea of hitting people multiple ways.
Right.
Right? So I think the gallery is wonderful. I think going
to the
to
village.
the village is wonderful. And I also, you know, some of the concepts where you're doing marketing communications or advertising, and there are different averages of how many times you have to message a person before they can grab all the information. And some people say it's 7, whatever it is, you know.
Yeah.
I think
Touch
it's
things,
a
you know,
yeah,
whatever
whatever
they
it
touch,
is. It's a great idea, and there's more than one idea here too. So, you know, every time I look at those things, either the squares that we have of the colors or the actual diagrams, I notice something different every time. So it is a little bit of complexity. So, you know, you get a little more every time. I'm wondering if the village would be willing, I think they usually limit comments to 5 minutes. I'm wondering if they could be willing to say up front, well, you know, we'll give you 10 or something.
Yeah, and I think because we have contracted with Giannagle for our third open house, they would definitely be presenting information. I'm happy to kind of fill in the blanks on the staff side of things, but I would assume that the village might afford us a little extra time.
I
don't
think you can't do it ahead of time, going in knowing you've got, but you can ask for it right away. You can just say,
That's our
Presentation. I'd like to, without being interrupted, I'd like to ask for additional time. So you get 10 minutes, and if you need another 5 minutes, but they're not gonna do it ahead of time.
Gotcha.
It had to be done while, at the beginning of presentation, saying, we have time presentation here, it's gonna run over, will you allow us extra time, and they'll take a vote real quick. Sounds good.
Everybody
Yeah.
okay with that?
Yeah.
I was letting anybody else, and Sarah, you should probably chime in too, but I love the gallery idea and I love the spirit of the village idea. I don't know if there's a way to fine tune it, but the spirit is we want to allow everyone the opportunity to see the presentation, even if they had a scheduling conflict or they didn't know about it at the time because they somehow missed all of the marketing. I appreciate what Karen said about, you know, if you're motivated enough, but I do think there's a lot of people that due to their schedules or due to other things going on may have been interested, but it's kind of a use it or lose it if they didn't hear about it in time or if they couldn't make it on a Monday or whatever, then they missed it and there was no record for them to go back to. So I love the idea of using the village as a vehicle to have a video that then you can refer to or to watch it live, but I don't know yet, like especially if it's public comment, it's not gonna be an agenda item, it's not really gonna jump out as like, oh, here's the library thing, and would you have permission to put a link to the video on the library's website to say, go here to view the presentation?
No, we can do that as public.
Okay,
We can do
so
that.
just, you know, making sure that it's, you know, if it's as simple as, here's the YouTube video, go to minute 25.03 or whatever, that's good enough, that gets it done.
We can even edit the video to the exact
Just
cut.
to the.
Yeah, we do that with the capital improvements dashboard. If you click on the videos that are embedded in all the
Yeah.
dots, we do that with the cut, so we can do the same
Yeah.
thing.
Good, all right, yeah, then that satisfies all of that. And then that creates a permanent opportunity, you know, it's like time travel. You don't have to have been there that day, you can always refer to it as soon as you know that it's there.
Yeah, and all of our, on the capital improvement station, we've documented everything. So if, should someone, you know, be more of a village watcher, they can see it on the village, and if they're more of a library, you know, aficionado, they know where to go for that information. Right.
Makes sense.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking about that is how can that just time at the village be linked and also put on Facebook or whatever. I was gonna ask like how can that happen and also to the website because of course it's the easiest place to get it and time constraints like Jenny had said and I just was thinking that was a really good idea to link it, make sure people can get to it on the website or social media. And I really do like the 777 because that could also start conversations with the staff. Like, let's just, it also gets the public and the staff sometimes talking. They could maybe, give their perspective, because if they're asked, I don't know, just something I was thinking about.
And I'm gonna challenge everybody, if you happen to be in Facebook and you see a post, make sure that you forward it if it's about the library. Not only like it, but then forward it. Because you might have friends that are not on the library's page. And so then they can forward it. You know what I mean?
Instagram?
No, Facebook.
Just sharing? You're talking about sharing?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, it's different verb, but the same idea.
Yeah, shame on me, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, sharing it. Because everybody's got a different set of friends. Those friends may not necessarily have liked the library page and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so the one other thing I'll throw out there, could be a good idea or bad idea too early, but I think maybe this is a good opportunity too, if you do have that village 5 minutes or 10 minutes, to use it as like a public service announcement saying, hey, look at this great big new thing we're getting, but pardon our desk coming up in 2022. Might be also some of the communication they get out there that we're going to be having some renovations and things to think about. So I think the goal is not to get so much feedback from the village on change this, change that, because that will slow down the project. It's more,
This is happening.
this is happening,
This is happening.
pardon our dust, it's coming up. We want to make sure the village knew it was coming up, so no one was surprised by it. And then that's a good use of time then for that too, to start that momentum.
And we have some other irons in the fire with the advocacy and outreach committee too. So this is just one arm, and we have more arms coming.
Oh, that's great. It's like covering all your bases.
Yeah.
Being very transparent.
Right.
Good. Anyone else?
Mark, may I go back? I should have asked
Of
that
course.
question when you asked if we had it. On the anticipated building permit process,
Mhm.
I noticed in the minutes, when would we ask for the permit fee waiver?
So I had preliminary contact with village staff. I called and asked that question,
Okay.
and the short answer was, do that when we submit for the permit, because they have to calculate the permit fee. And they can't do that without having the drawings.
Okay.
So that's fair enough. We might have to, and we have budgeted for it, so we might have to give them the down payment or deposit. Maybe that gets refunded or whatever else, but that's something we'll talk about.
Okay. And also regarding the Moody's review, I'm wondering if it might not be a good idea either in the AOC committee or just what you think. The Moody's review was so positive. I mean, I was really impressed. I wonder if, would it be a good idea to highlight some of that and put it out there? I mean, I think it's fantastic review, and we should utilize it. I mean, I realize it's not a AAA, but, for all the reasons you mentioned.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure I would never know that. I mean, I'm familiar with Moody's reviews, my former business life. It is a big deal
Mhm.
when you get a positive review, so just a question. Can we think of ways to publicize it?
I think that's more of a,
We'll
yeah.
work on that.
Yeah.
I mean, not the whole review, I mean, it's pretty small,
Snippets of it.
Well, it is in the packet.
right? And I read it.
Yeah.
It's a
Cover
double-edged,
that.
it's a Yeah. double-edged sword.
Well, that's why I'm throwing it out there.
And maybe talking about it on Friday.
Okay.
Friday, we have an AOC meeting. So everybody's invited. That's our committee.
I think we should ponder it.
Yes.
It's a great rating, we'll get us good PR, certainly probably with the taxpayers, things of that sort, knowing that we've got a well-run facility here. But we gotta ponder how we're gonna go about publicizing that.
If there's any downside to that, is there's double-edged sword, as Liz said.
Right, I guess the question that you might want to think about for for your committee meeting might be, what are we trying to do with it? If it's just getting it out there, that's one thing, but it's just gonna, you're not sure what it's gonna do. If there's a purpose or a placement that's purposeful, that might help, but I'm,
It could just be even just a kind of a stamp next to some of our documentation when we put out information, like Lisle Library District A, AA1 rated.
Right,
library.
yeah.
That's
Yes.
sufficient, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
that's true.
Anything else from Art?
All right, it's a simple meeting this time, yeah, thank you. All right.
Some of us ask questions. They're supposed to.
I'll take any questions anytime.
That's very simple.
All right. Anything in your reports I should hang out for? Or
I
no?
think you're aware of everything I'm going to be talking about.
All right, thank you very much. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 6, committee reports. Letter A is finance, any reports?
We've not had a finance committee meeting since the last report.
Thank you. Letter B, personnel and policy, Emily is absent. Letter C, physical plant.
No.
Okay, thank you. Letter D, advocacy and outreach, trustee Sullivan.
I kind of jumped the gun, we're having,
Yeah.
so I don't do things at the right time either. We're having a meeting Friday at 1:00. And going to talk about all of the issues that we just kind of touched base on.
Thank you. Agenda item 7 is staff report. Letter A is the director's report.
Hey, so as you can see on my report, it's been a very busy 30 days since we last met. It's probably a non-complete list of meetings at the top of my report, but what I'll first mention is, I'm just going over this for the public record, that the library received village approval for the drive-up service window. Mark and I came before the village board on September 20th, and the village trustees asked a few questions about the drive-up service window, and then they unanimously voted to approve the request. And then the next day, I sent the mayor and all village trustees a thank you email, and I also let them know that this approval keeps us on track with our schedule, and as well as allows us to accomplish all of the goals of the project. And then also this past month, as Mark mentioned, the department directors have met several times with the architects to explore material types, flooring, carpeting, wall coverings, and paint, as well as continually assessing their workrooms. I also went downtown and visited the architect's office with Mark, and we looked at updated floor plans and some material samples there. And then, as Mark also mentioned, he met with the department directors separately to talk about electrical access and technology, and Sandy, our IT manager, was with him when they walked around the building. And then, as you all know, on October 20th, the board met to discuss the project schedule, budget, floor plan, and see exterior colors, and that's still in flux right now. I'm working with the architects and receiving more color choices for you. And then yesterday, the department directors met yet again with Amy and Magda from SNH to hone down material choices. And like I said, we're not 100% there yet, but we were getting there. And then I also met with a signage expert to talk about wayfinding in the building and department-specific signage. And I've got a little bit more homework to do on that, as well as some homework for Amy. And Mark mentioned the Moody's rating, and I'm not going to say anything about that except I am also very proud of our institution. We're very fiscally healthy and proud of our rating. So we'll move on to general financial information now. Just in audit news, just wanted to mention that our lead auditor that we're familiar with, Michael, is no longer with Lauterbach and Amon. So our presentation generally occurs in October, is going to occur in November. And just a quick mention about IMET. Back in 2015, IMET had a fraud incident where monies were electronically stolen, and many other organizations were involved, and we looked this up. over 300 municipalities were affected by this fraud, I believe, and so, including the library. So since the fraud incident, we've received incremental payments back for this from IMEC. They've worked to try to recover funds for their clients, and so we've gotten a few back, and we alerted, and what we received, what we think is the last of all of these payments, is coming from IMED. Doesn't mean we won't ever receive anything more, but they've kind of reached the end of litigation and trying to recover these funds. So we alerted Sickage to this, and they've removed the liquidating trust asset and then expensed the balance in our contingency account, which will work as like a miscellaneous expense there in our financials. So when you see that, that's what that's about. And then on October 6th, Treasurer Norton, Mark Rogers, and I met with Tammy to discuss aligning our investments with the renovation project to maximize our returns during the project. And there's a summary document in the packet from Tammy. And then just in sum, Tammy suggests that between 2022 and 2023, we might expect to see about $16,000 in additional predictable income using LR's investment plan. And it would be an additional expense for us, about $2,000 expense for them to consolidate everything and work with us, and also work with Sickage, so there's some hours there, but it will really consolidate everything as a renovation kind of investment plan for us. And then moving on to community group partnerships. I presented the library's renovation highlights, the overview of our floor plans, and the budget to the Lisle Women's Club on October 6th. And after the presentation, there were a few questions about staying open during the renovation, as well as parking near the entrances and a few others. I also talked about an idea for one of the study rooms that I've been batting around with the architects, where in one of the larger study rooms, a wall could be lined with cabinets where the Lisle Women's Club, the Friends, the Foundation could access their files instead of from within our storage room. This would be at a minimal cost and also require less staff intervention to have to escort people back into the storage room, which is not really great. So I see it as more of an archival public study room. It would be still public, anyone could walk in there and use the room, but the club members that we have such tight bonds with could access their files from within this public room just using a key. And so it seemed to have positive reactions from the Lisle Women's Club, and so it was just nice to present something to such a supportive group. And then October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and the library is proud to collaborate with the Metropolitan Family Services Organization to collect donations for women and girls experiencing homelessness and or domestic abuse. And we thank Senator Laura Ellman and Senator Susie Glowiak-Hilton for connecting us with this important cause. We are running this campaign through November 12th, actually. So if you have a gently used purse or other items for girls or women, the box is in our lobby just outside these doors. And the Lisle Woodridge Fire District visited the library in October to highlight National Fire Safety Week and also to celebrate their love of their car. They couldn't make it in September, so they came in October. So we had a little photo op with Fire Chief Preston and Sparky. And we also promoted the fire safety theme on our social media platforms. And then, as Mark mentioned, he visited again. We walked around the building to show him our floor plans, and that was great for him to come. Mark did not mention this, though. The fire district does not sign off on the review plans any longer. The village outsources that with another kind of fire safety company. But it was important for us to have our fire chief, our fire department, come in and walk through the building with us, sit down with Amy and Mark and look at the plans page by page, just to gain some insight from him. So that was good. And as you know, September was Library Card Sign-Up Month, and we saw a 66% increase in new card registrations from last year to this year, so that was great. I was really pleased with the increase in new card holders. Staff really reached out with extra effort to increase our numbers, so kudos to all the staff for their work. And despite families being able to just use one card for one whole family, I think it's still very important that we reach out to the community and spread the word about how valuable a library card is. So again, kudos to the staff for all their hard work. And then we had our very first Fall Fest very recently, and Lisle residents are indeed very desirous of outdoor activities for the whole family, and as mentioned in the report, we estimated at least 650 patrons in the library parking lot for the Fall Fest. It was a 2-hour event, all ages. We had a churros truck, autumn crafts, we registered people for cards, and we had a petting zoo, so it was cute as well. I just commend the staff for their planning of this event and for the execution. It was wonderful, and then in the packet there's some great photos of all the trustees as well as staff, and they're all memorialized on our Flickr page as well. And then just lastly, I have 2 extra mentions that are not in my report. Since the board has been meeting in person pretty consistently, I'd just like to propose that right now we've been offering meeting room A, which is that meeting room, for public programming for the outside groups to use. So what I would like to do is propose that we open up B for public programs as well, but keeping them separate. So we still keep the groups small, say up to 20, so there's still some, social distancing happening. But we've been leaving, when we were recording live, we've been leaving this room set up with all of the recording materials. But now that we're meeting in person, I'd like to ask the board if they're okay with using this room. I'm also asking that because Mark mentioned phasing. As of mid-February or early March, we're going to be getting into that phasing. So this room will not be available at all for staff programs nor outside group programming. So we'd like to offer it up until that point at least. And so if you're okay with both sides, we would like to move forward with that. We're also going to have to find a place for board meetings. So Mark and I are working on that. But this room will, I think he mentioned this, become materials as well as maybe some staff. Well, staff will be in this room, but maybe some departmental staff as well as maybe some public PCs. It's just going to be an extension of one side of the library and materials available here. We'll also have the downstairs, and YS will stay the same for the first phase, but downstairs in the half that's on this side, it's going to be reconfigured completely, like where shelves are everywhere, so at least we have materials available because we are staying open throughout the process. Okay, and then opening up the side of the room, we're thinking November, so we can alert people and let them know. And then finally, for the newer members of the board, the library traditionally closes the library one day a year to provide what we call in-service training for staff. It's like training and team building, and this requires board action. And it generally happens in the summertime. Of course, a year ago, 2 summers ago, we didn't do this because of COVID. However, we did do some online training. So it was more of a partial digital in-service. And then this summer, because of the renovation meetings, those have become a priority. However, we still want to provide an in-service days, I'll say, for staff. Because staff have been here for over a year, in person, regularly scheduled, working. So what I'm proposing is that we conduct training in small groups over a two-day period and then not closing the library. So it'll be a little bit more staff intensive, but it'll keep us open and it'll keep our staff groups smaller. It'll also be, like I said, more condensed, and it'll be an in-service few hours for staff. It'll just be a little bit more modified. So for the longer standing board members, if you're wondering when we'd be closing, because it requires board action, I'm proposing we not do this. Assistant Director Quillen and I will station both sides of the meeting room. It'll be closed off, so I'll have a small group, Beth will have a small group, and we'll have rotated groups in and out over a 2-day period just to accomplish kind of an in-service day for us. And that ends my report. Any questions about any of it? It's a lot.
Do you have, I love the idea of having smaller groups, I love the idea of having in-service for the staff. Just out of curiosity, do you have any idea of what kind of topics you wanna?
We're working on it. Every in-service day, we do emergency training, like tornado drills, fire safety, help me out, Beth.
Bloodborne pathogens as
Bloodborne
requirement.
Right, so we will do that. I think because the department directors and some other key staff have been directly involved in the architect meetings, and not every staff member, like from the pages to the associates, have been. I'd like to have a portion of the in-service day be focused on the renovation so that every single staff member will walk through a presentation, I can answer some questions and things like that. So that will be one portion of it, and I'm not sure what else we've got on our list, but we're working on it.
Okay. Sounds good. Great.
Any questions for Director Wonder? Thank you.
Oh, just a couple of suggestions. In terms of meeting rooms, I'm sure you probably already thought about the fire department. I'm not fire, well, yeah, the fire department has a room downstairs. And also the police department training room. And then, I think they let you use those for free. But, for about $60 at, what is the name of it? Trinity Cafe, you can use for a board meeting or something like that. You can use, the meeting rooms at Trinity Cafe at like Benedictine and Maple.
Yeah, well, we have some good relationships intergovernmentally. I would like to get us rooms for free.
Of course, of course.
I mean, I know the Park District has a room as well, so Mark and I are working on
Gotcha.
scheduling out. Yes.
Thank you. Assistant Director's report.
So gonna review sort of back to front. Limerick, I met virtually with the Library Insurance Management and Risk Control Combination, otherwise known as Limerick, for their fall meeting. And this was to discuss health insurance. Last January, we started, Limerick used Aetna to be their benefits administrator. And so they did take a survey to find out how satisfied people were with the new benefits administrator, and it was a good response, and Limerick is happy with it. Last year we had no rate increase, and starting in January 1st of 2022, they're planning, they see an 8% increase in our rates across the board, not just the Lisle Library, all of the member libraries. Stevens Plumbing was here to do some facility work, and they replaced a spigot out on the Front Street side, and they did a restroom fixture, and then they were also here yesterday and replaced some parts in the men's room here in the lobby. Patriot Electric fixed our lighting on the south side. With those, they had to replace the fixtures that actually go up on the light poles. Metal Master Roofing was here, and they did the roof inspection and cleaned our gutters. And I'm awaiting a finished report from Metal Master, but they're gonna give us some idea of helping to fix the gutters on the south side. There's some sagging that they noticed even with cleaning out and checking on them, so we're gonna need a little bit of repair there. And then we did some sidewalk repair, And this was, the Village of Lisle contracted out for the repair of sidewalks in the village. And they marked for our entrance and exit on Kingston and Front Street to be repaired. So the village inspected the work that was done, and they decided that the Front Street sidewalk was a trip hazard where it connected to the driveway. So the village this week removed and replaced asphalt on both sides of the sidewalk. They didn't alert us, the library staff, that this was happening. The exit was closed to traffic from 9 a.m. till about 11, and the public works staff put up orange cones to block the exit. So I want to thank Nigel Jackson, who's our graphics specialist, who quickly made a large exit sign to direct cars to the Front Street entrance so that the cars could leave the library properly. And thankfully, there were no accidents that day. It was a bit confusing, but it was 2 hours, and it looks nice.
Well, it was a little more than 2 hours because they were here before I got here at 8:30. So it was a little much. A little much, but yes, and they did apologize.
Then that's my report.
Agenda item 8 is new business. Agenda item 8A is to approve resolution 21-07. Resolution to determine estimate of funds. This is a resolution to determine estimate of funds needed for the 2021-22 fiscal year. May I have a motion to approve in a second, and then the director can provide an explanation.
I move to approve resolution 21-07, resolution to determine estimate of funds.
I second.
Thank you.
So this resolution affirms that the library does not intend to levy more than 5% from the last year's levy extension. This is a calculated 4.99% above last year's levy extension and shows a not to exceed number. This resolution also affirms that we will not need a TITA hearing, that's a Truth in Taxation Act hearing. Next month, the board will pass the levy, where the board has already determined that we will go with 1.5% or CPI over last year's extension, but that happens next month. This month's resolution simply states that we will not levy more than 5%, and it documents the not to exceed amount, and we use the same calculation of 4.99 every year.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Karen Larson,
Aye.
Sarah Wynn,
Aye.
Jenny Norton,
Aye.
Liz Sullivan,
Aye.
Norma Turner,
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Aye. Item 8B is the statutory requirement to acknowledge the payment of earned or unused vacation time as required by Illinois Wage Payment and Collection Act, 820 ILCS 115/5. This payment shall not exceed $4,716.18 to be paid to Nancy Frederickson. Agenda item 9 is opportunity for trustee comments. Trustee Larson,
Don't have anything at this time. Thanks.
trustee Norton.
Echoing what others have said, very proud of the Moody's rating, and also, again, if it's just me, but I'm pleased with the turnaround in the youth services carpet selection. I think that's a great win, and also really excited about the upcoming plans for promoting third open house.
Thank you. Trustee Sullivan.
Just, again, I'm really happy with how everything's continuing to progress. I was wondering, have we ever thought of doing anything for grandparents, like an event? Because I know I've seen a lot of times where it's the grandparents that bring the kids, especially the toddlers, it seems, to the library. And I was just wondering if there was anything that we would consider doing for those grandparents.
We do have, and we don't like do them every week or every other week, but we do have family craft night. And we do have grandparents and grandchildren come as pairs to those.
Okay, I was just,
But I can always encourage more thought on expanding with staff.
you know, I don't know if, you know, if there's something where kids could make something for their grandparents in a, I don't know, a craft kit or, there's so much going on. I don't know if there's room for one more thing.
Oh, good idea. I can share, absolutely.
That was it. Yep, that's it.
Trustee Turner?
Nothing to add?
Thank you. Trustee Wynn?
No, just to add congratulations on the Moody reading. This is all definitely new to me and trying to digest it all, but that's great. Like congratulations. It's really good. Like I said, I'm just trying to digest everything, but everything seems to be in such going so well for the renovation, on the time, on the schedule, the turnarounds for everything. It's just, and especially all the time, Tatiana, that you have that connection because you have to communicate always with the architects. But I think it's an amazing relationship, and to be so transparent with both the architects and the library, everything seems to just be going so well. So congratulations on all the work too.
Thank you. I'd just like to comment on the Fall Fest. Great event, had a really good time. Also want to thank the department directors for their quarterly reports. I read them with great interest. And I'd like to wish a happy retirement to Nancy Frederickson. And how many years has she been with us?
She has been with us for 33 years.
Oh,
And I know I
wow.
warned everybody, we have some long time retirements
Wow.
coming, and this was like
That's amazing.
33 years, and she's also a Lisle resident, so we will be seeing her around.
That's great news. Okay, I think that's it. The last item on the agenda is to adjourn. May I have a motion and a second?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
I beat that.
No discussion.
Any discussion?
No.
I don't think so. We are adjourned.
Wait, roll call, right?
Roll call? No.
No, not to just.
I don't.
Or you can say it.
Okay, let's do a roll call.
Okay. Sarah Wynn,
Aye.
Liz Sullivan,
Aye.
Karen Larson,
Aye.
Jenny Norton,
Hi.
Lorna Turner,
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Aye. We are adjourned at 8:10 p.m.